Go ahead, Frank.
Okay, we're waiting for Penny, but we're recording this meeting, so everybody's aware. When Penny gets on, I'll have a motion in a second to accept the minutes. At this point, we'll move into reports for our executive director.
So tonight, we've got a bunch of different things that I'd like to make you aware of. Number one is that several meetings that are coming up that you are all invited to. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is on Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 10 a.m., the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee, the Senate Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee, will be having a public hearing on the next generation of firefighters at the Flight 93 Memorial Learning Center at 10 a.m. Now, those of you that are in Western Pennsylvania or South Central Pennsylvania are welcome to attend the meeting. The meeting will also be streamed live on Senator Pat Stefano's website, if you're interested in attending that meeting. It is a hearing that will be, there'll be several people testifying at that hearing, and the focus on that hearing is, again, discussing the next generation of Pennsylvania firefighters. I'll list the agenda, and we will talk about that in the second half of our meeting tonight. And again, talking about changes and ideas for changing the junior firefighting laws in Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about technology and online training and high school credits through community service. That is a part of the Institute's responsibility. The Career Fire Chiefs Association will be testifying, along with the Pennsylvania Professional Firefighters Association, and the Pittsburgh firefighters will be testifying. The purpose of this is education for the Senate committee. Additionally, who will be testifying is the Community College Association of Pennsylvania and some local fire chiefs from the area, from Senator Stefano's area. So that agenda is almost completely put together. And again, you're invited to that to either watch or stream through the website, through the Senator Stefano's website, or attend in person, Again, it's Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 10 a.m. The second thing I'd like to speak about is PFESI is holding a series of town hall meetings in the fall. And the purpose of the town hall meetings is to take our advisory and our listening tour on the road to different areas of Pennsylvania. And our board of directors discussed this, and we talked about that, and we committed to, talk about Act 91, talk about fire police, talk about recruitment and retention, and basically listen, to have a town hall meeting. And there'll be 3 meetings that will be occurring. One being Tuesday, September 28th in Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Monday, October 18th in the city of Du Bois in Clearfield County. And Tuesday, November 9th at Albright University outside of Reading. Those meetings will be from 7 to 9. Chief Zenkari and myself will be facilitating the meetings, and our goal is to reach as many people as possible from those areas. We will most likely be doing another series of those in the spring, or winter and spring of 2022. So those are our announcements for the meetings.
Just don't confuse those with the SWAB meeting. They are not going to be SWAB meetings. They're going to be town hall meetings, and we're trying to get supervisors and councilmen and all invited into these meetings so we can share and certainly educate what we do every day of our life. So don't get them confused. They're not SWAB meetings. Jerry and I are going to be doing round robins throughout the state, probably over the next year, so we can try and get some communications and a better understanding out there what we're all about.
And a little bit of history about this, and I think Frank and I will, be honest in talking to you about it. And a lot of this came out over the last several months, before and after the fall general election and the ballot measure in regards to the loan program. We encountered a lot of different people that were not familiar with the Institute, not familiar with the legislative process, and we feel that we want to continue to get the word out. So anything to add to that, Frank?
That's good.
Okay. There's two major agenda items that we'd like to talk about tonight. And as many of you know, PFESI and other statewide organizations get questions and get requests from members of the General Assembly on a regular basis. And again, that usually comes from a staff member or a member themselves from both the House and Senate side on, hey, we got this idea, or there's been an idea that we need, do you think we need to write legislation on? Do we need to change something? Do we need to improve something? And the discussion about fire police and the use of red lights was one of the topics that came to us. And through a discussion with a member of the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness staff, it was thrown out there is, do we need any changes in the fire police law? Is there any discussions in regards to the fire? What do we need to do? So our normal procedure at the Institute is to do a survey. And we did an online survey with some questions. And it was actually one of my best surveys that people responded to. We received about 662 responses. And we had a group of volunteers that approached us that are close to the fire police community. And I had some comments or discussions with people that were involved in that. And I asked them to take a look at the survey and provide an update or kind of a report on, what their thoughts are on the survey results, and providing some type of direction for us as a statewide advisory board, as an institute, where we can work to improve or change the legislation. So at this time, I'm going to either turn it over to, I'm not sure if it's going to be Randy Rice or Jack Erling, or if Ryan is on, I'm going to give the floor to them to discuss what they feel, what they feel and how they feel with the survey. I do want to then, once they are completed with their discussion or things like that, we will open the floor and allow you to provide direct feedback in regards to this. So again, I will monitor that on the chat room. If you'd like to speak, I'd like you to kind of send a message in on the chat room, and then I'll call on you. Just put your name in the chat room and said you would like to speak, and then we will call on you. Okay, so we're not all talking over each other. So if it's Jack or Randy or Ryan, or I'm not sure who is on, because we have a full screen of people here. There's about 45 people attending. I will turn this part of the meeting. So first part of the meeting we'll be talking about again is the fire police monetization, the fire police issue. The second part of the meeting, we're going to talk about the concepts in this next generation of firefighting. If anybody has any ideas to add in regards to that. And then the third part of the meeting will be an open discussion. If you would like to, you have a topic or you have something that you would like to communicate to Frank and I. So Jack or Randy or whoever is representing that group, you could have the floor right now. Or Ryan, I see Ryan is going to open up the discussion and then turn it over to Jack and Randy. Thank you very much. Ryan will be first.
Good evening, folks, and thanks, Jerry, for the opportunity with this. I know I reached out to you early on the minute I seen that the survey was being posted. Are you able to hear me?
We are able to hear you.
Okay. just a quick brief. You've got Jack Erling, Randy Rice, and myself, all veteran instructors with a heavy background in fire police instruction. We took a look at this and we did a triad conversation a few nights, and last night we kind of, or excuse me, yes, Monday night we kind of got everything kind of coalesced to address the swab. And I'm going to turn it over to Jack purely because I think he can better articulate some of the conversation that we had. What we're finding is that out of 214 pages of responses, which would be the text responses to the questions, I think there was a total of 5 questions. We had a lot to wade through. So with that, Jack, if you don't mind, jump in there and we'll handle this on a triad.
Thanks, Ryan. Nice to see you, Jerry. Been a time. We looked at the survey that you presented, and thank you very much, because it was kind of interesting. The conflict in answers was probably more interesting than anything else. We pretty much agreed that emergency response is not something that is necessary for fire police. We also agreed that the law itself is pretty well managed the way it is now. It's flexible, it's loose, and we're kind of afraid to open it up because once you open something to the legislature, you have no idea what's really going to come out. The last thing we really talked about was that we do need to revisit the current education programs and update them, and that we probably need a third course that would be an update course. And the update course needs to do a lot of the practical stuff, primarily aimed at keeping people alive on the highway. Randy, your turn.
Jerry, good evening. Good evening, everybody. As Jack did talk about, we did meet on Monday, and we got to go through a nice discussion. And some of the more common comments that we did see, it ties back into the education process because it falls back down onto either the fire department itself and or the municipality when it comes to like mandatory training and so forth. So there's a lot of questions and responses to that in all 3 of the questions. And so again, we boiled it down and we talked about making sure that we come back and revisit that everybody is educated through the training programs by the current programs, and then adding this additional one on there. Pending any questions, that's Jack, you pretty much summarized it. There's not much more I could add to it.
There's one other thing I'd like to add, and that is the interesting response of the lack of line of duty death coverage and workers' comp coverage for fire police. And I have no idea where that's coming from, because while there was at one time a problem with the federal program and someone who is not actually engaged in the fighting of fire, I understand that problem has been resolved. And there's never been any kind of a problem with coverage in Pennsylvania, either under the Pennsylvania system or under the workers' comp system.
Yes.
Can we address that problem to the person or persons that may need to be educated on that's changed, or it's never been a problem? So at least we go back to them with an answer.
You're talking about the line of duty death or the workers' comp?
Yeah, both
Issue?
of them, really. Yeah.
Okay, workers' comp does not differentiate between a fire police officer or a worker or any other firefighter, other than that under subchapter D, chapter 74, the fire police officer actually has greater coverage under the Workers' Compensation Act because that person's employment begins generally sooner than a firefighter's employment. So the second thing is that the line of duty death for Pennsylvania is no different whatsoever. On the federal scene, incidentally, Jerry knows this. I used to be the director of the Bureau of Workers' Comp, and I was also a member of the Workers' Compensation Appeal Board. And actually, I wrote some of the workers' comp stuff that deal with firefighters. On the federal scene, when the act was changed to change the name from fireman to firefighter, there was an attorney at a higher level in the whole scheme of things in Washington, who, instead of understanding that this was just a change to make it non-gender specific, that he chose to say, no, it wasn't that. It was that now that you had to be actually fighting fires to be covered under the federal law. And the National Firefighters, the Fallen Firefighters Association was instrumental in helping to create filings that overcame this problem. But he actually, this guy took over the responses by the responsible bureau, took over the responses by the judges that are handling the cases. My understanding is he's gone and it's no longer a problem on the federal level. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I do want to open it up before I make any other statements. Is there anyone that would like to ask a question to any of our fire police panelists? Anybody have a question that they'd like to ask any of them? Okay. You could just speak up or
Yes, please.
just identify yourself and that'd be great.
Tom Robinson. I just had a question. He was said in the beginning, I guess, he said fire police is not an emergency response. Is that what I heard?
Okay, so let me clarify that, and I'm going to go back to Jack, Randy, or Ryan on this. So a little historical perspective is there was a request to a senator from a constituent about permitting fire police officers to run red lights and siren on personal vehicles. Okay. That was the initial request. Okay. And it's not just the line officers of fire police, the captain and whatever, it was everyone. So there currently is some discussions going on comprehensively about lights and siren for other professions in Pennsylvania on personal vehicles, mainly members of police departments that are on CERT teams and that they need to respond and do not have take-home vehicles. And when people want to address, when they want to open up the law to add things, the fire police came up. So that was the initial start of this. And we kind of expanded the survey to say, hey, is there anything else that needs to be done with fire police? Okay, so that's what, I'll kick it back to Randy, Jack, or Ryan to clarify what Tom just asked. So that's the historical perspective on the why.
It may have been a bad choice of words. To me, and I learned this from Jerry when he was my chief, a person responding with red lights and siren is there to save a life. Yes, we can do that, but basically that's going to be a result of us being on the scene. We don't need to get there to save a life, and we don't want to risk a life in getting there. When I was a captain in Jerry's company, I had red lights and siren, and I rarely used them. Frankly, I used them on 581 when I was having to go to the commands to hear what's going on so I could work with my fire police as to where they should be and what they should be doing. But basically, it was rare that I ever used my red lights or siren. Now I'm also a lieutenant in Butler County, and I never turn on my lights to go to the scene because it's a much more rural area and I don't have the problems that I did in the more urban area of Cumberland County. So that's what I meant by a non-emergency response. I hope you understand, Paul.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, for the clarification, because like I guess it all depends too on the jurisdiction and stuff like that. Because some areas with traffic, you know, you'll never be able to get there, especially like on the interstates and stuff like that. And now it's more imperative than ever that fire police are able to get to the scene with the traffic units and whatnot, with all these rear end accidents that are happening almost now on a daily basis.
Yeah, not to expand it, but for fire police on a interstate, you don't necessarily want to get to the scene. You want to get to the end of the traffic so that you can put up the warning signs for the emergency scene ahead.
Does anybody else have any comments or feedback on this specific discussion? Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And if anyone would like, anyone that is interested in getting together with the work group that is currently taking a look at that, what I'm kind of getting in what I'm hearing from our subject matter experts here is that, you know, this is not something that we need to, you know, be charging up the hill and saying things need to be changing immediately. This is something that I and the Institute could report back and say, you know, really, we really don't need to do anything at this time. Do you feel that is the correct way to move forward? And I feel, hold on one second. Nathan Glazer. Nathan, you'd like to speak? Go ahead. Just identify yourself and where you're from. Hold on a second. Let me unmute. You got to unmute there, Nathan. Hold on. Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hold on one second.
All right.
We can hear you now and just need to turn your camera on again, Nathan.
Oh,
There you go.
got it?
Yep, go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you. Nathan Glazer. I'm a fire police officer in Delaware County, which is suburban Philadelphia. And I've been kicking around this for about 40 years, not because that's a great statement, but just that I've had some breadth of experience. I want to speak to the fire police survey and some of the questions in it. And I'll state right off, I'm kind of an opposite on a lot of these things. First of all, I think fire police training should be mandated in the law. It is inconceivable that we allow people to walk about 4 and 6 lane roads who have not been formally trained and take control of scenes as far as traffic. I see incompetent people on the road and it disturbs me and it scares me. And I realize letting the legislature tinker with anything is a danger, but where we are right now with a situation where anybody can essentially be sworn as a fire police officer and handed a badge and go out and wreak havoc is simply unacceptable in the 21st century. So I think mandating it is necessary. It's way overdue. Now, the content of the training and how it's delivered is a different story. Secondly, I see a persistent problem with fire police being under-equipped. Individual fire companies, depending on the leadership and their degree of breadth of view, do not want to allocate resources to fire police for protective equipment. Now, I think part of the answer to this is that the responsibility somehow has to filter maybe back up to the local chief of police, for whom fire police should have a relationship, and force this issue. If people are not going to be equipped, they should not be taking the risks. And right now, I see too many people out who are not adequately equipped. The standards are just too wide. Now, in a perfect world, I'd say the fire commissioner should be using rulemaking power to issue something in the PA bulletin saying this is a standard set of equipment. If you're going to fire police, commit to doing this. If you're not going to commit to it, you probably shouldn't be putting people out there to take the big chances. I'll stop there. I've already done enough damage, I suppose.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate that feedback. Any other comments on so I do again, I have some people coming in with some comments that state again, no changes need to be made. I understand the training piece and things like that. Again, we are, our organization, we're an open organization that we take feedback and we generate ideas and we debate, and that's absolutely, thank you very much for reporting that. And anybody else have specific questions or would like some feedback on this?
Hey, Jerry, this is Randy Rice.
Go ahead, Randy.
Hey, one of the things we did talk about the other night was the fact that there seems to be some type of disconnect between the municipality or AHJ and the fire company and the fire department. And so I think one thing that we should look at is potentially developing some format where the municipalities and AHJs understand that they need to kind of check to make sure that if the fire police are not getting the equipment from the fire department, then that's an AHJ concern. So we did talk about that. We did bring it up and come up with we're looking at some type of potential idea of how we can educate the municipalities. Now, I've been fortunate enough that this year I've had some municipality representative in my classes. So they are starting to come out into the classes and learn some of this stuff. But it's something that we just need to keep in mind that a lot of that equipment stuff falls on the fire department, relief, and the municipalities.
Thank you, Randy. There's someone by the name of Len that would like to speak. Just Len, if you'd introduce yourself and let us know where you're from. Okay, Len is not answering. John Seneff, you have a comment here that you'd like to make?
Yeah, thanks for following up, Jerry. Yeah, just in response to some of those comments, in lieu of changes to the act or asking a governmental body to promulgate such rules and regulations, which we all know could be very challenging, maybe as the Institute, we could issue recommendations as a guidance document to address such things as training and personal protective equipment. At least that way there is a written reference to follow for any municipality, department, or other organization that would want to follow it.
Thank you, John.
John, that's a great idea. And I think some of these town meetings, educating some of our political leaders in a smaller quorum will be much easier. There's probably some people don't even know, should the mayor get the fire police or the fire chief, or you're still dealing with who actually asked for the fire chief, for the fire police. I know in small municipalities in Schuylkill County, some fire chiefs run the fire police, some have their own organizations, and some are directly underneath the mayor. So, which the police department, I should say.
Thank you, Frank. John Waters, you have a comment? John, are you able to speak?
There we are. I just feel that, we need to get the PSATs and the other municipal organizations to explain to them the impact of Act 7 of 2008. I know none of the elected officials in the municipality in which I live are even aware that they are ultimately responsible. And I guess we need to tell them they're it.
Thank you. Nathan Glazer, you request, hold on a second. Go ahead, Nate. You could speak again.
Okay. Yeah, something I kind of left out, a problem that's occurring in my area particularly, and I suspect it is widespread, is that many fire police actions stem from utility problems. Wires come down and they require road closures. The problem I've experienced, and I think most of my colleagues have, is that too many utilities are just too lackadaisical in responding. Their view is we'll get to it when we get to it. And depending where you are, some places will put barriers out and walk away, and I think that's adequate. Other places insist on having personnel stay there. But I think the legislature, whether through regulation or legislation, has to force the issue with utilities that if you're Verizon, your wires come down and they're blocking a road, it's not acceptable to say we'll be there in 12 hours or 14 hours. Which right now in some cases is what I've experienced. Electric utilities are a little more responsive because they clearly have a serious problem. But with the number of cable wires and other things, so I think this has to be in the mix somewhere that allows fire police that after 6 hours we can leave barriers and walk away, and it's not our problem, because otherwise it can become almost perpetual, waiting for somebody to show up.
Thank you. Any other comments or feedback on this topic?
Jerry, Ryan Rumsey again. Just to make a quick point, it's been said several times throughout the course of this discussion that education is really the key to making things work. Yes, the law has been around since 1941, and yes, the law is written very broadly. It is the only law that truly exists for the fire service when it comes to what we do. It enumerates what fire police are and what the purpose of them are, which is to keep firefighters and emergency responders free of impediment from outside influences, provide a blanket of security around the incident. And while we know that that's the core of our work, Nate made some good points about the training and also the fact that there is a bit of an abuse on us when we're left to hang out there waiting on a utility or some other agency to come and take care of their business. There are a lot of things that we need to take a look at, and I think the working group idea is the right way to go. So if we're able to move forward and keep chipping away at this, and I can't state enough, it is education. Fire chiefs are oftentimes really not well educated on the purpose of fire policing. The municipalities that swear and confirm, rarely have much of a knowledge base other than, hey, these folks come before us and are sworn in. So we're going to have a campaign to do this. And one last note is that I've been of the mind that if we throw more lights out at the public, are we solving any kind of problem? I don't think we have a fire police issue. I think we have a public education problem when it comes to any emergency response agency or vehicles with lights. We don't have a well-informed public as to what their obligation is when they encounter them. So I don't think that we can solve everything on just adding lights and other authorities, if you will.
Thank you, Ryan. I do want to ask Len if he'd like to speak because he did send a message in. Len, are you able to speak?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I could hear you now.
Okay, I had a problem with my microphone. I'm the president of Ross Township Fire Police, which is just outside the city of Pittsburgh, just north. We do have a pretty good setup with 8 fire companies involved. We do not allow any of our members to go out without first taking a fire police course. So if you join our department, you have to take a course first. So I heard one of the members here say that, that anybody goes out there and starts. And when that's done, then we do our internal training to make sure that they are doing things right, as far as even giving directions with your hands and stuff. Some people just do a little wave where nobody knows what the heck they're doing. You want to make clear signals and stuff like that. So I just wanted to let you know that there are some companies that really take this serious. And when it comes to, we have 279, which is a big interstate that goes right through our township. We don't allow our personal vehicles on there. we have fire police vehicles that are allowed to go on there. So we don't allow any of our guys, even with the red lights and siren, we don't allow them on there just because of the hazard. We have a lot of equipment on our vehicles. So if we do get there first, we train our people to stay way back and start setting up a perimeter, putting signs up, and then start putting cones up and make sure that everybody's safe and clear.
Thank you very much, Len. And again, we're gonna get close to wrapping this part up, but I do want to say that there was a comment that came in from Bill Hall. In his fire department, they only allow, the fire police to be on the scene for 1 hour, so they're not abused. I don't know, Bill, if you want to elaborate on that real quick, or how you handle that. Okay. All
Can I
right.
say one more? Can
Go
I
ahead.
say one more?
Yes, sir.
I heard him talking about this. We do need to do something about the utilities. Because we get on a call and these utilities take advantage of us. They tell us to hang around. Now, I've been telling them, once you show up, it's your call, we're leaving. But we don't want to leave a hazard. And sometimes they're kind of like dependent on us to do stuff for them, which we shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't keep roads closed, keep our signage up, because they don't, and there's times they have the stuff on their trucks, they just don't want to do it. So I think if there's some kind of legislation, something that forces these utilities, not only to come in a good time frame, but once they get there, it's theirs. They need to release us.
Okay, well, thank you very much. What I'd like to do is, if anyone is interested in being part of a fire police working group, okay, please send a message into us, okay, or an email to me, and I will get it to Ryan and his group. And there's some other people that contacted me about that. And again, with the technology that we have, we could use the Zoom technology to continue, getting some consensus and best practices. And the goal has been accomplished that when I get it, again, as the Institute gets a request, I just want to make sure that we get back and say, hey, things are okay for now, but there's some tweaks we'd like to do or talk about that and get in the process. So I'd like to thank you guys for that. Okay.
Next generation.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We're gonna move ahead to the next topic, which is the next generation of firefighting.
So
Go
go ahead, Frank. Thank you, Frank. I want you to, this is going to be if you take a look at your fire department, your area, your municipality, the question that I receive, and again, you take a whiteboard and you wipe the slate clean, or what would you like to see in the future, or the next generation of Pennsylvania firefighter? So we were approached again by members of the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee and say, what's the next generation look like? What should this be? So many of you are familiar with SR6, SR60 previous to that, and there was a whole bunch of different things that were involved in that. And there's been interest at the legislative level to keep moving forward with implementing some of those things that are in SR6 and continue with those things. Some are a little easier than others, but I was asked, what does the next generation of Pennsylvania firefighter look like, or what should it be? Should it be changes to the junior fireman law? Should training be different? Should we have more or different types of programs for youth? Should there be more things from community colleges or different things? Should there be more high school programs? What you are in the field. There's 45 people on this call. Some of you have been in the Pennsylvania Fire Service for many years. Some of you are maybe not, are newer. And maybe you can't even answer that question tonight. And maybe I'm asking you to go back to your fire station and ask that 18, 19, 20-year-old, that 25-year-old, what can be done at the state level? What can be done? What can we do for the next generation of Pennsylvania firefighters? It is a very broad topic. It is a very broad topic that the information that we receive back, again, it's going to be, there's hearing topics here. There's hearing topics for the hearing, but what comes out of the hearing then hopefully will be something different and some legislative things or some initiatives that could be done. So I wanted to kind of throw that out there in this format. When Frank and I talked earlier, because we started to learn about the hearing probably mid-June, and Frank and I talked and we said, this is a perfect topic for the SWAB to kind of have an open discussion. So I'd like to throw that out to you. And there's a lot of different things that I said, but if you would like to speak, please send a message in and I will call on you and allow you to talk on that concept of next generation and talk a little bit. And we're recording it. And where do you need to go with that? So open floor.
I'd like to speak.
Okay, hold on one second here. Hold on. Bill Hall is the first one. He's the first up. So Bill, please introduce yourself and just do a very brief introduction for those of you who do not know you.
Thanks, Jerry. My name is Bill Hall. I'm from Lancaster County and do a lot of things in the fire service. Probably the biggest one I'm doing right now is I teach the Protective Services program for Lancaster County Career and Technology Center. A couple things I would say is some of us need to get out of the way of the youth. And that doesn't mean step down, but that means let them grow. The other thing I've learned about these kids is they're very capable if we give them opportunities. They do want to volunteer. They do want to help their communities. One of the problems is they want instant gratification. So when we have to put them through weeks and months of training before they can ride a fire engine, that's a difficult thing. They can go other places and make an impact almost right away. So it's not that they don't want to help. They want to help now. So we need to look at ways we can make that go faster. The other thing I've learned, I will proudly say we're one of the best recruiting tools in our county for firefighters, is because even though I get kids that come in and want to be a police officer, we make them do the firefighter training. And every year, a group of them like it, and they continue on. If we can find ways to get them to try it out. I'm very proud of my county, not my department individually. They've run some very successful youth firefighting camps at 2 or 3 different ones in the county alone, and they're getting it and they're doing it. Those are the kinds of things that I think are going to help. Get them to try it and let them get involved in helping much sooner than months of training while you watch everybody else going out the door. I could go on for hours, but I'll stop there.
Thank you, Bill. And I do want to say the idea of those youth best practices for youth summertime camps, I have noticed that specifically in 3 departments across Pennsylvania. And I do like the idea that John Seneff talked about is a best practices document that shows how to set those camps up. So I do like that. There's a guy that came in that said Zoom user, and I asked him to talk about some training things. So Zoom user, could you please identify yourself and talk about what you sent in to me?
Sure, was that me?
Yeah, if you are Zoom user.
Yeah, I don't know why it didn't pick up. But anyway, it's Red Flagel here from Westbrook. But just what Tom was saying is, as far as our best asset has been the Octorara School with the technical program. But again, as you know, we're pretty fortunate down there in the south of Chester County. Plenty of resources from the elected officials. Again, it started in 1980, so it's not new. So it's 40 years we've been doing this. And if you do not have your elected officials, and I don't care about the fire cops, I don't care about fire trucks or anything else, if you don't have your elected officials on your side, you're going to struggle. And those days of eating crap from the utility companies, first of all, it's not your responsibility for the fire police to spend the weekend out on a closed road. So again, as we discuss this, like you guys said, we're doing pretty good down in our area as far as recruitment and retention and holding the people. So that's kind of like where I'm at. When I said about the training, Chester County had a study done in 1980 when I was president of Chester County Fire School. And Chester County was told to have basically a stadium in the centermost part of the county, and then have two ball fields, one in the north, one in the south, so they could do training. And they have found, and the study came out of training or University of Wisconsin, that if volunteers have training within 25 to 30 minutes of their home, the likelihood of them continuing is just about at 60, 70%. It's when people have to travel, like we used to travel to Delaware to get training because we didn't have a facility anywhere around Chester County. So that's kind of like where I'm going with this thing. You got to keep the training, and you got to continue training to get these kids that want to, to grow in their jobs. And yeah, we do lose them because we lose them to career departments. So again, it's another one of those double-edged swords.
Thank you, Red. And what I specifically wanted you to say is we're saying, make sure you can get training within 25 to 30 minutes of each station. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, I know, and obviously, when you're out in the middle of the state, it's hard. But the fact is, I've always believed, I go back to to the 70s with the fire academy. And when you used to have to travel, they didn't have no training on weekends. It was Monday to Friday. So in the old days, in the 70s, literally someone had to take off work if they wanted to go to the fire academy, which is like crazy to me, that the academies have to be on the road and be able to train in local places or regional places.
Thank you, Red. We're going to go to, I've got a couple lined up here and I'm going to read it out. John Waters will be first, and then 15704, you're going to be second. 15704. So John Waters first, 15704 is going to be second. So go ahead, John.
Good evening. I'm nothing of, as I said, Jerry, earlier, if not stubborn. Where is the Pennsylvania Sprinkler Coalition? Because the bottom line is we can recruit 100 firefighters per station tomorrow. And due to the changes in fire dynamics, we still can't make a difference. We need to understand the impact of fixed fire protection. And the question is not about firefighting in a community, but about fire protection. And who is the community champion for fire protection in the global sense?
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Thank you for that comment. And next up is 15704. And please identify yourself, where you're from and stuff like that.
Jerry, I'm not sure if that's me, Ryan Rumsey. I dialed in, so that may be the number that comes up.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's you. Did you make a comment? Did you request to speak?
Yeah, I said, may I have a moment on this topic?
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
So this is a little bit of philosophy, and I'm looking at I'm scanning through all the faces on there, and I know a good share of the folks that are on this call. And I look at it as a multi-generational thing. we're several generations crammed into a firehouse, and we all have our differences, and we all have our likes, dislikes, and everything else. One of the things that have been a topic up here in Tioga County, and again up here in the rural aspect, sometimes it seems like we have even a greater dynamic that are we a clubhouse or are we a business? And one of the biggest issues with that is leadership. My feelings on this whole thing is that we also need to focus on how to create better leaders in this industry. It's not enough to just be the popular guy and be elected and expect to lead people to do certain things. And firefighting is a serious business. Rescue activities are a serious business. And where we're at, it's multifaceted, because one fire station can have engine company, ladder company, rescue company, water supply, fire police. It can have the whole thing under one roof. And sadly, because of the call volume, we never get good at any one thing. So the training aspect needs to go just a bit beyond the nuts and bolts stuff. It needs to go on into leadership. And I'm reminiscing back to the George T. Lewis Fire Service leadership retreats that we used to have. They were a great opportunity, but they were not as widely attended nor broad as I would like to think we are. We go to the National Fire Academy, we have great leadership and administrative types of classes, but I think it has to go out into the field a little bit more to develop leaders. If we want to have good folks beneath us, we need to have good leaders that understand the process. And that's my 2 cents on this.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to tell you that there's some great new curriculum that's coming out as a Academy on the Road program, a National Fire Academy program called Leadership and Supervision Series. State Fire Academy Administrator Tom Cook got a grant, and we did a Train the Trainer a couple weeks ago in Lancaster County. And there's going to be a series of leadership programs throughout Pennsylvania. If you look at the website, State Fire Academy website, if you go and take a look at the Institute website, but this is just the start. There's going to be more of those. And I do agree with you about the leadership development programs and the vision to continue those. Those are very good. So Jim Carstetter.
Good evening. Talking about training, I think I've sat in on at least a half a dozen meetings this year so far where we've talked about training and the issues that we've had with people making remarks like our training system is broken and so forth. And I think one of the things that we need to discuss for this next generation idea is how we're going to fix these deficiencies that we're facing in terms of having instructors to deliver the curriculum when and where it's needed, the cost associated with it, just top to bottom. I go back and instructing to the 60s, and back then we had a lot more state certified instructors than we have now. And we had 3 in my own company back in the late 1960s, early 70s. And this goes back to before we had a fire commissioner and into Chet Henry's time. When Jack Simon came along, he determined we had way too many, and we cut our instructor corps tremendously back. And I think we've cut it back too far. I see far too many classes want to be scheduled and end up being canceled because they can't get an instructor or the instructor's availability doesn't match with the time that the company wants to put it on and so forth. So I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed in terms of fixing the thing is addressing the instructor situation we have. Another thing I'm looking at, and this goes for EMS as much, if not more than it does for fire, but that is the cost of the instruction. I wrote an article in the Pennsylvania Fireman last month, and I just highlighted some of the increases that were included in the budget this year in the education realm. And I am 100% convinced that Pennsylvania has the resources to address the fire training issues in terms of the cost to local companies. We just don't have the will to address it and start chopping these costs down. But when you look at what it costs to take a recruit and put them through an EMT class and multiply that by 10 volunteers, it becomes a very expensive proposition. And yet we're giving away free education in a number of different places. We need to address some of these issues. And we've talked before about tying this back into availability at the secondary education level and then into some of the community colleges. And I think we need to kind of tie this all together, both in terms of numbers of instructors, the costs associated with delivering a curriculum and the materials for them. I put on a fundamentals class, just the cost of textbooks alone these days can be a major expense to people. I think we really need to address that. At the same time, the immediate gratification that somebody mentioned a few minutes ago is truly there. But one of the things we have to do to address that is we have to have some kind of a public education program that reaches out to school districts, education community, the media, to make public safety sexy again. Right now, we're targets, and that comes a lot from law enforcement. But I've seen EMS people being attacked. I've seen firefighters had things thrown at them. Who wants to volunteer to be a target? And we need to start getting some positive PR out there. It used to be kids wanted to be firefighters when they were little. You don't see that as much. There's some of that still there, but we got to do something to make public safety sexy again. Make it a place that people want to gravitate to, the right people. And I don't think that we're doing that. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up was in talking about the training, we've got a situation coming up where we're going to have an election next year and we're going to have a new governor. And we need to start developing a list of questions that we're going to put to those candidates. And training needs to be one of them. We're going to have a fire commissioner for the first time that's going to have to be confirmed by the Senate. And we ought to be saying to the candidates, how are you going to select this person? How are you going to address these issues that we've identified? And then we, at the same time, ought to be coming back to the legislature and saying, okay, these were the concerns that we laid out to the administration. As part of your confirmation process, you ought to determine whether or not these things were addressed in the selection or not. And we ought to have that ready to be laid out. I know we discussed it at the Law and Legislative Committee meeting at the state back in July, and we kind of decided to ask Frank to be the point person on this. But I would like to see something be done where we can all submit questions or so forth to have something ready to go.
Thank you, Jim. And what you mentioned about the resources and the cost of training, if many of you remember, a recommendation, one of the recommendations in SR 6 was to provide free basic level education for fire and EMS. And again, that was just one of those statements in SR 6. And I do believe you are correct. If there is a will for $5 million to be placed in some account, that could happen, and that requires work from a lot of levels. But thank you for your feedback on that, Jim.
If they could come up with an increase of $359 million for basic education subsidies, they could come up with $5 million for fire education. It's just a matter of priorities. We cannot accept that they don't have the money.
Thank you for your insight on that, Jim. I've got Frank
Jim,
Zengar.
let me just add one more thing on your instructors, those people that are talking about less instructors. Our state retirement program isn't helping, and we've been fighting with this for years. The instructors that are state employees that have been instructors for 20 plus years retire from their state jobs, and then they can't teach because it's somewhat coming out of the same funding. And that needs to also change. We're losing good state instructors basically because they're retiring from their jobs, and that's we've got to change that. So that's another big issue for legislators to look at. And it is a topic we've discussed several times, so. And I will follow up with you, Jim, on the concerns about questions. That's an ongoing thing we will continue to work on. Go ahead.
There's a couple more. Hold on one second. Somebody else wanted to talk. John Seneff, did you want to say something? And then Nathan Glazer was up. John Seneff, Nathan Glazer.
Yeah, Jerry, just coming back here with respect to the training and opportunities, just following up on your prior comments about the partnership that Tom and the folks at the State Fire Academy have now done with the National Fire Academy for the Leadership in Supervision series. I think another opportunity for training would be to expand that with community risk reduction, which could go in and address some of the issues that John Waters brought about, as well as looking at statewide issues on, how do we go in with the next legislature and the General Assembly and whoever the governor will be coming up in the future here to get the appropriate funding.
Got it. Thank you, John. Nathan, and I'm interested to hear from any other fire chiefs that may be on here that talking about this next generation, or someone who is a next generation firefighter. I see some names that I know on there. I'm not sure if I'm going to call you out on there, but somebody from the southwestern part of Pennsylvania, if you'd like to give some opinion from that and what you'd like to see. So Nathan, you're up, and we'll see.
Okay, thank you. I also read the Senate 6 report several times with great interest, and I find a lot of well-intentioned ideas, but very little directed at the problem. First of all, the legislature continues to avoid the issue of mandatory sprinklers, fixed protection. That is the number one thing to prevent fire loss and to save the lives of firefighters. And I have a lot of ideas as to why it happens. I don't want to pin anybody, but until that mandatory sprinkler is in place, we're all at risk. Secondly, the legislature has, again, danced around things and made them hard. They passed legislation saying municipalities can provide tax relief to individual firefighters, but they ignore the fact that many fire companies deal with multiple municipalities. So in effect, if you're a fire company, you want to get local tax reduction, you have to make the same trip to 3 or 4 municipalities and beg each one. By comparison, Maryland and New York have established single across the board rules at the state level that say you can either get a waiver or a reduction in your state income tax. One authority, one set of rules, one set of legislation affects everybody equally. Instead, we're so bound to municipalities that we can't break out, which leads me to the next thought, that the most important legislative development that's missing from here is we need county enabling legislation, which is to enable counties to create authorities or agencies that can respond to calls. We need to emulate what's been done in Maryland particularly. Maryland has a strong volunteer system, but it's intertwined with an effective career system. And the county is the agent that delivers it because the municipality simply isn't important in Maryland. In Pennsylvania, you have municipalities which have 1,500 people and 2,000 people. They never have the money, they never have the tax base to act. So move it to the counties, at least give them the opportunity to step in and take advantage of it. There's a bigger population base. There's been a lot of talk about the junior firefighters. I came in as one, a lot of you probably did. I have great doubts whether a 14-year-old has maturity to belong in the system. I think anything below 16 is a bad idea. I've already read of at least one 14-year-old who was killed in connection with a fire response, and I think that's something that's no longer appropriate. Final thing I'll say is in the area of financial responsibility, which nobody talks about. The state of Delaware enacted rules that make every fire company get audited periodically, and that puts confidence in the public that money is being properly spent. There is no such requirement here, and fire companies regularly joust with municipalities over the issue of whether they can see tax returns or financial records. I think placing some kind of an audit requirement is something that is well overdue and would probably serve to protect everybody's interest. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to address, again, just there's two others that came in. It's Red and Bob Grunmeyer to talk about the Commonwealth status. And I do want to just let you know, again, there is work, a lot of work that has been done by a lot of people to develop legislation to establish countywide public safety authorities. And we don't have enough time to talk about the specific details of this, nor do I have a good personal assessment on the likelihood of that. I know that it will be voted out of committee eventually, but eventually getting across the finish line in regards to that. But I know there has been a lot of discussion about that, a lot of discussion on the challenges of the Commonwealth form of government and things like that. Thank you very much. Somebody else have a comment or some questions that they would like to make?
I like to.
Go ahead. Next up.
Hi, I'm Len. I talked to you before as a president of Ross Fire Police. I'm also a fire chief at a Fairview Fire Department in Ross. And some of these problems I see trying to get these younger guys, the training is long. Is there any way that we can put some of this training online? I know it's going to take some work to do something like that because you're going to have to make sure they're doing the training and like have tests and stuff. And I know not all the training can be online. You still have to have live burns and all that stuff. But I think if we did some of the online training, we could, instead of these younger guys spending so much time going to these classes, maybe do some of the stuff online to save some time. That's one of the things that I have.
Thank you, Len. That'll be discussed a little bit later as we go. Anyone else have some comments? Again, talking about that next generation firefighting. Again, the topics again are going to be pretty broad at this hearing. The junior firefighting, what changes may need to be there. That the recruitment, retention, again, the stuff about the tax breaks and the municipalities and things like that. Again, that concept of training, these are, again, broad brush. Again, our responsibility is, from the SWAB, from Frank, from our board, from our town hall meetings, is to try to get as much information as possible from the diverse areas of Pennsylvania and able to try to come up with a menu of things that may make a difference and try to help out. So a variety of things. So any other feedback or discussion points that anybody has? Again, we have a lot of people online. Okay, Tom Cook, are you there?
Sure am, Jerry. How are you?
Tom, thank you very much for attending. You want to just kind of just do a little briefing. You don't have to answer any specific questions or put some things out there. It's whatever you feel comfortable in discussing from your point of view, just a little, and just make sure you do a little introduction on who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Tom Cook. I'm the administrator of the Pennsylvania State Fire Academy. So I've been listening to the last few minutes of conversation very intently. And it's nice to hear that some of the vision that has been set for the State Fire Academy moving forward aligns with a lot of the comments that were being made by the attendees tonight. So, when I was brought on board here 3 years ago, the fire commissioner tasked me with not making training easier, but training easier to access. So again, I'm glad to hear from you guys that we're starting to address that pain point. Online training is one tool. Taking the training closer to the fire stations, we're looking at ways to make that happen. Our most popular class here in the resident program is our Structure 1 program, which is offered over the weekend rather than Monday through Friday. So everything that you guys have been talking about, I think we're already starting to take steps to accomplish. So I just wanted to, say thanks for reinforcing some of those concepts with me, and I'm going to continue to keep working away at this stuff. And, I'm very interested in input. where are we meeting the target, where, and more importantly, where are we missing it? And, how can we do better? Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Hey, Tom, I just want to add that the Pennsylvania State Weekend was successful again. Great job you and your staff did on that program. And next year's program is July 30th, 31st.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good.
And next year, Frank, we're going to be able to offer the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation classes as part of PA Weekend on campus. So
Great.
we're going to be expanding the offerings. And my budget for next year, I'm planning for 300. So start recruiting now, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Tom.
Yep.
So kind of bringing this topic to a close, and any open discussion that anybody has or any open questions that they would like to ask. I'll throw it out there. If you'd have any, excuse me, any type of feedback or anything like that. And we'll kind of wrap it up with, where are we going and where do we see we're going? And I'll answer that.
Jerry, this is Jim Karstetter. In Tom's initial email, when he told us about this hearing coming up, he mentioned that both the FASP and the PFESI were two that were going to be involved or invited to testify there. Who is going to develop our testimony and who's going to deliver it? Are you?
Here's what's going to happen. Based on this meeting, we'll be putting together a few general things. So unfortunately, I am going to be out of town. So our board member, there's several of our board members will be attending. Chief Jared Renshaw from the Western Berks Fire District will be in my place. Jerry Brandt from Cambria County will be kind of coordinating the effort. We have Ellen Yarborough from Delaware County to speak about high school credits for community service. And there's a few other positions that are open, one or two positions that are open that we may or may not fill in regards to volunteer recruitment and retention. We have the Institute has 30 minutes to discuss that. And my plan was to go back after this discussion here, go back with Tom and you and kind of come up with, maybe one of the things that popped off the top of my head is that, maybe one of the pieces, Jim, is that, the SR6 recommendation on the training funding, why not throw that one out there? If that answers your
Are we going
question.
to discuss this tomorrow?
Yeah, we
Yes.
could talk about that. Yes.
Okay.
And then, for example, the career firefighters have 30 minutes, and then the community colleges have 30 minutes, and then there's a fire chief panel that has 30 minutes. And John Waters put a statement in about the status of the PA Fire Sprinkler Coalition, which has been traditionally under the auspices of PFESI. What we did with the Sprinkler Coalition, we had a volunteer that was interested in doing that from the Western Pennsylvania area. He did a little bit of work on it on the social media end, but not enough. I would say that that whole effort needs to be reorganized and come up with an advocacy plan for that. Again, people that would be interested in participating with the Sprinkler Coalition, I would absolutely ask for some volunteers, and we can continue to move with that.
And John, I can tell you that that's part of the board September 20th board meeting that's on the agenda to discuss there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anything else that anybody else would have? So we've kept about 43 people on the meeting for about an hour and 19 minutes. We certainly appreciate your feedback on this. Again, again, when you look at the statewide advisory board is a part of the Institute where we, again, seek input. If anyone ever has any suggestions for any ideas, similar to what Ryan brought up about the leadership training. I ran into a gentleman at the National Fire Academy a couple weeks ago that he attended one of the PFESI leadership programs when he was in high school and things like that. So, and he's now, very well much into his career. And any ideas that anyone would have or any interesting things that are happening in your community, as was mentioned by Bill Hall in those youth firefighting camps and things like that. And I like the idea of kind of developing a best practices sheet. And then what we talked about with some of the fire police things that John brought up in regards to, best practices and stuff like that. So in Pennsylvania, again, there's a couple of ways of doing things. It's that suggestion model, the best practices model, the local control model. There's the legislative model, which is always a little more difficult, but not impossible. There's been a lot of things that have positively been accomplished, but there's always more work to do. So with that, go ahead, Frank.
Just want to thank everybody for being part of tonight's program. And believe it or not, you're all playing in the role of the next generation by just taking time tonight and giving input or listening in to everyone else's input. Thank you for taking time from your families. Our next SWAB meeting most likely will be in January. We'll get that out. Penny will get that out to everybody. But at this time, if there's no further business, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn and a second. Is there a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second it,
Frank.
Thank you. And have a good night. Thank you, everybody. This
Thanks.
meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, guys.